Also, very pleased to have with us on the program right now from townhall.com, Professor Mike Adams. How are you, Mike?
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm good. Did you have a good Christmas?
Oh man, I had a fantastic Christmas, and
Yeah?
I got ammunition for Christmas, so that's always good. So I'm back
Nice.
home and ready to fire a few more salvos.
Excellent. Well, it's always nice when Santa drops some ammo in your stocking.
Absolutely, man, but not too hard.
Hey, you've got a great column out, Full Metal Yellow Jacket,
Yeah.
talking about the issue of campus carry and the fact that the college campuses around the country, the administrators, they'll tell you, you're perfectly safe. Crime is much lower on a college campus than it is in the ensuing community. But safer, Mike, doesn't mean that there's no crime at all.
Oh, absolutely. And, they really have a serious problem at Georgia Tech. And I wrote that column, and Cam, you've read my stuff for years, and you know that there's a lot of satire and a lot of hyperbole that I use when I write, but I am deadly serious with this one. I really think there are two things we need to do on college campuses these days. First of all, I can't believe we haven't done this yet, and that is just to allow the lawful concealed weapons carriers to carry on campus. I can't believe in the wake of Virginia Tech that more schools haven't moved forward with the decision to do that, that there haven't been more movements in the state legislatures. I really am surprised by that. But the sort of second move that I've made and that I've written about is drawing some criticism. I've suggested that we ought to treat the dorm rooms just like apartments. If you're an 18-year-old and you can afford and you can have a rifle or a shotgun, well, guess what? You ought to be able to carry that in your dorm. If you're 21 years old in our state and you have a handgun, it ought to be something that you can carry in the dorm. And I just really think that we need to stop treating these universities sort of like leper colonies and make them like the rest of the world. Because right now college students are very vulnerable, and I think 58 burglaries this year and 58 burglaries last year at the Georgia Tech campus is cause for some serious debate about this.
Yeah, and the case that you mentioned, where a student named Justin Myers was the victim not only of a burglary, but really of a strong-arm robbery.
Yes.
This individual was assaulted in his dorm room by four masked men, right?
3 out of 4 were masked. One of them was armed. They threw him on the floor, kicked him in the face, and things really got out of hand. He feared for a while that he was going to be shot and killed. And, I'm always telling students, of course, don't open the door without looking through the peephole first. And he did that because he was expecting some friends. But also, I think it's important for them to have guns as well. Interestingly, one of the really heated emails that I got was from a former RA from Georgia Tech who graduated way back in 1969.
Yeah.
And he says, this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. What makes you think that you could have guns in there with all of these students and with all of the alcohol, so on and so forth? Well, I responded to him, Cam, I'm a good old redneck, and I went to Mississippi State University way back many years ago. And in our fraternity, 130 guys, 40 guys living in the house, we had firearms at all times, and we had booze at all times. And guess what? 0 people assaulted with a firearm, and also 0 burglaries. We were never broken into in all the years I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, this is the first line of defense, I think, against the idea of campus carry is insult the intelligence and maturity of college students. And say there's absolutely no way that college students could handle the responsibility of being a gun owner. There's no way that they're mature enough to do this. Mike, as you point out, way back when, you guys were mature enough to handle this. And frankly, when you look at the campuses, Colorado State, the entire public university system in Utah, there have not been problems on the campuses that currently have campus carry policies.
And there's a simple answer, too, by the way. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'll tell you, on the maturity issue, I have to tell you this, Cam. The fact of the matter is many of them are entirely too immature to have them. Well, guess what? It's the mature people who go through the process of licensing and training. And the beautiful thing about this is, my Georgia Tech solution costs nothing to the taxpayer. But the beautiful thing about this with the concealed weapons is that you don't have to carry to get a benefit. When other people are carrying, they're protecting you. And that's the thing that's absolutely clear in the research is you will be the beneficiary if you don't feel comfortable getting a gun. If you're not mature enough, you don't have to. And
Well,
that's the beauty of the plan.
You know, and as well, Mike, I mean, and you know this, maturity is not automatically conferred upon you when you reach 18 or 21 or 25 or 30 years of age. I'm sure, and I'm not going to ask you to name any names, but I'm sure that you have some colleagues that are not mature enough to, be a concealed carry holder. But
Cam, can I please name that?
Give me one. Yeah.
I'm just kidding with you. I'm in litigation with him right now. I'll forego that. But at any rate, oh man.
So I'm dead on, is
Right.
is what you're saying. I mean, you know,
You are.
there are administrators, there are faculty members who don't have the maturity, but as you say, they're not going to be running out and getting a concealed carry license.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, though. Also, I have found that when people start to handle guns and learn how to hunt, learn how to carry, learn how to shoot, well, it's an important part of the maturation process. I really do believe that. And it's perspective changing as well.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. I think that is one of the best ways to teach someone responsibility, which is why I think the shooting sports for teenagers is a great thing. And, you know, you look at somebody like John Michael McGrath or Kimberly Rohde, who started shooting when they were 10, 11 years old and ended up, making an Olympic career out of it. Shows you you can be a mature young individual around firearms. So the emails have been flying fast and furious. Are most of them running in opposition to your idea, Mike?
Oh, no, they are very few, and it's interesting. The very few that I get that are negative. The volume of emails has been high, but it really has been a few negative. And honestly, it's just these left-wing anti-gun people who, they're the only ones that I don't want to have guns because they're really thinking emotionally. But at any rate, I responded to that. The gentleman who wrote earlier also pointed out that back in the 1960s here in Wilmington, North Carolina, at New Hanover High School, kids brought their shotguns to school, and they put them in their lockers, and they went squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting afterwards, and we had no incidents that took place back then. It's really interesting. I think this really anti-gun culture in America is something that's relatively new, and people don't realize that. There are a lot of ideas that are being dismissed as insane today in our society that really have actually been the prevailing view throughout the history of our republic, and I think we're on to one of those right now.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And, you can, I guess maybe it's a chicken and the egg kind of question as to what came first, the anti-gun rules or the anti-gun attitudes. And maybe they started hand in hand. But as you point out, 40 years ago, to see that not only in rural North Carolina, but, Mike, I've talked to people who went to high school in New York City in the 1960s, and they used to take their 22 rifle with them on the subway, so that they could go to target practice before school started, and the target practice was held in the basement of their high school. This is not unusual, and you're right, that has been sort of the norm. But since the rise of the counterculture in the 1960s, which supposedly, Mike, was we were supposed to have progress out of this. Apparently, 40 years later, we've regressed to the point that we're now all a bunch of little children who aren't as responsible as our forefathers were 40 years ago.
I think the key is that the radical protesters on the college campuses back in the 1960s threw fits and chained themselves to desks in the president's office, demanding that they be treated as adults. Well, then they stayed and they got their PhDs, then they got tenure, and then they got elevated into the offices of administrators. And in the late periods of their life, basically, they've been fighting, demanding that we treat these adults like children. So it is an interesting paradox, but they really are the ones, the same people doing the campus speech codes and those who have this whole mentality that they are really the only rational people, the people who are setting the rules for the rest of the people. And, it really is just, I think, smug totalitarian liberalism.
I think you're exactly right. And, Mike, I appreciate you fighting that attitude on campus, sir. Glad we could have you on the show tonight. And
absolutely.
You have a Happy New Year. Let's do it again soon.